My name is Caroline Whitfield, 36 years old. On the night of our second anniversary, my husband texted me, "Happy anniversary, babe. I'm stuck at work." I was already sitting in the restaurant. 2 tables away, he was kissing my therapist, the woman I paid $300 an hour to help me grieve my dead father, while my mother's wedding ring, the one I gave him the night he proposed, sat on his pinky finger as he held her face exactly the way he once held mine. The disgust hit me like a blade to the stomach. I stood up, ready to rip them apart right there in front of everyone. That's when a stranger grabbed my wrist and whispered coldly, "Don't. Stay calm. The real show hasn't even started yet." They thought they were humiliating me. They had no idea this was the exact moment their entire world began to collapse. If this story touches your heart, please let me know in the comments. Where are you watching from? Your city? Your country? I'd love to connect with you. And a quick note. While this story contains fictional elements for educational purposes, the lessons about trust and resilience matter deeply. Earlier that evening, I had stood in front of my mother's mirror and told her I was wearing a dress she wouldn't have liked. Green silk, almost black in low light. "You'd say it's too dark, Mom." "I know. I wore it anyway." The mirror was the one thing of hers I never moved after she passed. Oak frame, gold leaf along the edges, a crack in the lower corner from the 1989 earthquake. I slid her wedding ring onto my right hand, because my left already wore the one Preston gave me 2 years ago, a thinner band, engraved inside with a date I no longer trusted. I was supposed to meet him at the Veranda, the restaurant on the top floor of the Hartwell Inn, one of the 6 boutique hotels my father built before cancer took him in February of 2024. My father built them with calloused hands over 40 years in Napa Valley. Preston just sold houses. That was supposed to be a sentence I never said out loud. Preston called me on the Silverado Trail at 7:38. Rain was falling at that slow, deliberate Napa pace. He sounded rushed, apologetic, almost convincing. "Babe, I'm not going to make it. A deal is blowing up. Forgive me?" I told him I understood. I told him I'd still stop by the hotel because I needed to talk to Tess, the general manager, about a supplier issue. That was true. I also told myself I didn't want to eat alone in a house I had started to find too quiet. That was also true. I pulled into the hotel lot at 8:04. His Range Rover, the white one with the vanity plate that said PBLUX, was already parked in the second row. I looked at it for 5 seconds. I didn't feel rage yet. I felt a small, polite confusion, the way you feel when you see your reflection in a window and don't recognize the angle. I walked into the veranda and asked the hostess for a window seat. Not table 14, not our reservation table. Something quieter. She gave me 11, in the corner by the vineyard view. From 11, I could see the whole room. At table 14, Preston was already seated. Across from him was Dr. Margot Sinclair. She was wearing a black silk dress I had complimented at a Hospital Foundation event 6 months earlier. 2 glasses of Opus One sat between them, already poured to the exact same level. The waiter approached me and asked if I wanted him to let Mr. Blackwood know I was there. I told him no. Not yet. I watched Preston lift her hand to his mouth and kiss the inside of her wrist. My mother's ring was on his pinky. He had started wearing it 8 months ago when he told me he wanted a piece of her with him every day. I had cried when he said that. I had cried because I believed him. The text arrived at 8:12 p.m. 2 lines, a small wine glass emoji at the end. "Happy anniversary, babe. I'm stuck at work. I'll make it up. I promise." I read it once. Then I looked up. Preston was sliding his phone back into his jacket. Margot was laughing at something he had just said. Her laugh was the same soft, low laugh she used in session when I told her my husband was trying with me. I had paid $300 an hour to hear that laugh. I stood up, The hand that caught my wrist was not apologetic. It was firm the way a surgeon's hand is firm. Not violent, not desperate, just accurate. I turned. A woman at table 12 was leaning slightly across the small gap between us. Maybe 44, dark hair cut short, a simple silver bracelet, no wedding ring. She didn't look at Preston. She looked only at me. "Please," she said. "Sit. Don't make a scene. I can explain." My legs were trembling underneath me, but my face wasn't. That was a new discovery about myself. I sat. "My name is Delia Harmon," she said. "I'm a licensed investigator working with a forensic accountant retained by your family's trust protector. I need 10 minutes. After that, you can do whatever you want." She slid a card onto my tablecloth. Reeves and Associates, Forensic Investigations, San Francisco. A handwritten number on the back. She did not push the card toward me. She simply made it available. "Your therapist?" she said quietly. That's not the big thing. Somewhere in my chest, a door I didn't know I had been holding closed began to open. I had been carrying a low, nameless unease for months. I had told myself it was grief. I had told myself it was post-wedding adjustment. I had told myself a dozen things that were all wrong. "Your husband is about to do something far bigger than cheat on you," Delia said. "If you confront him tonight, you lose everything. Not just him. Everything your father built. Stay calm. The real show hasn't even started yet." She slid another piece of paper across. It was folded, small, handwritten. "Office 214. Your own hotel. Second floor. Take the kitchen hallway. Your husband won't see you." I picked up both the card and the paper. My hand was steady. I still don't know how. I walked past table 14 on my way to the kitchen pass-through. Preston didn't look up. Margot did, for half a second, because she had peripheral vision trained by years of clinical observation. I kept my face blank. Behind me I heard her say, "She really thinks you love her, doesn't she?" And Preston, still stupid with wine and certainty, answered, "She has to. For 4 more months. 4 more months." I locked those 3 words into my memory the way you lock a fire exit into your memory before you stop paying attention to it. I would need them later. The kitchen hallway smelled like garlic and butter and clean linen. The sous chef nodded at me. I nodded back. Office 214 was at the end of the corridor, a heavy oak door with Tess Whitmore's name on a brass plate. I opened it, expecting Tess. Inside, a man in a gray suit was sitting behind her desk. 50-ish, salt at the temples. Behind him, a whiteboard was covered in blue tape, charts, and printed documents. Standing by the window was another woman, small, composed, watchful. The man in the suit stood up. "Mrs. Whitfield," he said, "my name is Colton Reeves. Thank you for not running." He didn't waste time. He pulled out a folder 4 centimeters thick, labeled WHIT-25-031 in black marker. He laid it on the desk in front of me. Delia came in behind me and closed the door. "I was retained by Judith Holloway in May of this year," Colton said. "Judith was a probate judge in Napa County for 22 years. She's the trust protector your father appointed. In May, she received a notification through a Delaware attorney contact. A shell company had been quietly formed named Ironwood Capital Partners, LLC, listing one of your trust's hotel addresses in its filings. She asked me to look into it. What I found is what brought us both to your hotel tonight." He opened the folder. The first document was a quitclaim deed, dated July 18, 2025. The grantor line read Caroline E. Whitfield. The signature was handwritten, soft, slightly slanted. I looked at it for maybe 3 seconds. "That's not my hand," I said. Colton nodded once, almost approvingly, like a teacher who had already marked the correct answer. "There are 2 more," he said. He laid them out like cards in a game of solitaire. Oak Knoll Lodge, August 12th. The Stone Creek, September 2nd. 3 properties, 3 signatures. All mine, according to the paper. All forged. Together, $14 million of Whitfield family holdings had quietly moved into a company that didn't exist on any public list, didn't have a website, didn't have an office, didn't have a single employee, just a post office box in Dover, Delaware, and a registered agent named Miles Drexler, a man my husband had gone to law school with for exactly 1 year before dropping out in 2009. Preston planned this for at least 8 months before the first signature, Colton said. He's not improvising. He's executing. I listened. My mind was not racing. My mind was, unfortunately, crystal clear. Years of watching my father negotiate with vineyard owners had taught me one useful thing. When bad news comes, the only useful reaction is arithmetic. Who notarized them? I asked. Same man. 3 times. Hayden Voss. Golden Vine. Title company. Delia stepped forward. She had her own folder. Smaller, thinner. She placed it on top of the deeds. The tab on it read, Sinclair. The affair, she said, is the smallest thing in this building tonight. She opened the folder. Inside were photocopies of clinical notes. My clinical notes. From my own therapy sessions. Entries stretching from July to early October. In the margins, highlighted, were phrases I had never said. Patient exhibits mood volatility. Possible self-harm ideation. Recommend 5150 assessment. Consider referral to Sedona Wellness Retreat, Arizona, for extended stabilization. My hands went cold. How did you get these? I asked. A former staff member at Dr. Sinclair's clinic made a complaint to the California Medical Board in August, Delia said. She saw a pattern. The patient she watched most closely was you. She filed the complaint through the proper channel, which gives our investigation lawful access to the summary. I read the notes again. On the day Margot wrote that I had expressed feeling disconnected from reality during marital events, I had actually spent the session telling her about planning a small dinner party for Preston's birthday. What's in Arizona? I asked. Colton folded his hands on the desk. Sedona Wellness Retreat is a private involuntary hold facility outside California jurisdiction, he said. Our best read of the plan is this. Your father's February 2026 trust distribution releases $8.2 million in liquid assets into an account you control. Once that money lands, it becomes difficult to freeze. Their window is narrow. Our belief is that your husband and Dr. Sinclair plan to initiate a 5150 psychiatric hold on you within days of that distribution, then extend it to a 5250 14-day commitment, and from there transition you into an LPS conservatorship controlled by them. Before May. He said it the way a surgeon tells you where the tumor is. I'm asking you to do something very difficult, Mrs. Whitfield, he continued. Go home tonight. Smile. Apologize for being dramatic earlier, if he noticed. Sleep next to him. Keep your appointments with Dr. Sinclair. The day you stop pretending is the day they either escape or escalate. I'd rather not find out which. I stood up slowly. The green silk settled against my knees. My hand, I noticed, was still steady. 3 months, I said. Then I want the podium. Colton looked at Delia. Delia looked at me. For one small second, I thought I saw her smile. 3 months, Colton said. Then you get the podium. The drive home on the Silverado Trail was 22 miles of black rain and cello music I did not turn off. I kept saying Colton's sentence under my breath like a rosary. The day you stop pretending is the day they escalate. The day you stop pretending is the day they escalate. I beat Preston home by 12 minutes. I ran a hot shower. I stood under it and counted backward from 100. When I put on my pajamas, the garage door opened downstairs. He came up with a bouquet of yellow tulips, a gas station bouquet, the kind you buy on a guilt reflex. He kissed my forehead. He smelled of Chanel Coco Mademoiselle, which is not the cologne he wears. I'm so sorry, he said. I know how much tonight meant to you. It's okay, I said. 2 years in, We've survived worse. His phone vibrated on the nightstand. The screen lit up with the letter M. He turned it face down too quickly, tried to kiss me again, asked if I wanted wine. "I'm just tired, babe," I said. He studied me for a beat longer than he should have. I let him. Tired women are easier to underestimate. When he was asleep, I went into the bathroom, locked the door, and sat on the cold stone floor with my phone in my lap. I opened iCloud Notes and made a new folder called Grocery Lists. The first entry read, October 18th, 2025, 8:12 p.m. He kissed her at table 14. He was wearing Mom's ring on his pinky. She said, "She really thinks you love her." He said, "For 4 more months." I set the folder to mirror onto an old iPad I had hidden months earlier, for reasons I could not have articulated at the time, inside the bottom drawer of my father's old desk in Office 203 of the East Wing of the Hartwell Inn. Preston had never been in that room. Preston had never even asked about it. I turned off the light, crawled back under the covers, and watched Preston breathe for a while. I used to count his breathing to fall asleep, back when I was the kind of woman who used a man's body for safety. Tonight I was counting it for a different reason. I was counting to understand his rhythm. Because the next 3 months, I was going to need to be better at pretending than he was. On Monday morning, I drove to 1088 Main Street in St. Helena, the walnut-paneled law office of Evelyn Prescott, who had been my father's attorney for 25 years. Evelyn was 61, sharp as a glass shard, and had been expecting me for longer than I knew. "Your father told me once, if Preston ever sells, we'll know," she said, pouring me a cup of the strong black tea she always kept in a cast-iron pot. I thought he meant, if Preston betrayed you. I didn't realize he meant the word literally. From a steel case locked with a 3-digit code, she produced the 3 original deeds. My real signatures. She laid them beside the photocopies of the forgeries Colton had brought. To my untrained eye, the fakes were close. Not perfect, but close. In 2 hours, a forensic document examiner will arrive from San Francisco, Evelyn said. His name is Dr. Lindell. He is the best in the state. He'll tell you exactly how many points of difference exist. Then you will know not by feeling, but by measurement. Dr. Lindell arrived at 10:42. He was thin, precise, with hands that moved in small, deliberate arcs, the way a watchmaker's hands move. He spread the deeds and the originals under a magnifier and spent an hour in silence. When he looked up, he said, 11 points of quantifiable difference across all 3. The capital C is too round. The pressure on the downstrokes is wrong. The spacing between the E and the W is wider by almost a millimeter. The tail of the D loops right when yours loops left. Whoever did this practiced, but they practiced from a limited sample. 2, maybe 3 of your real signatures. That tells me they did not have ongoing access to your handwriting. He handed me an 11-page report. Evelyn paid his $4,200 fee out of a fund I had never heard of. "Who notarized them?" I asked again. Evelyn slid the 3rd document toward me. A single name. Same man. 3 times. Hayden Voss. Age 34. Notary at Golden Vine Title Company. Father of 2 small children. Husband of a nurse named Kendra. Owner, according to Delia's records, of $22,000 in undischarged online blackjack losses. He didn't do this for loyalty, Delia told me later that afternoon, sliding a printed photograph across the table at Gott's roadside on Highway 29. The photo showed Hayden leaving Preston Sotheby's office with a thick envelope. Date stamp, June 11th, 2:14 in the afternoon. Preston solved a problem for him, she said. Hayden took the money, 3 envelopes, $18,000 in total. We have his bank deposits the same week in each case. I met Hayden 2 days later at outdoor table 6 at Gott's roadside. Delia sat down first. I arrived 15 minutes after. Hayden had already drunk 2 coffees and was on the verge of asking the waitress for a water when he saw me walk in. His face went the color of old paper. Delia leaned forward before he could stand. "Hayden," she said, "before you move, listen. There are 3 federal charges waiting for you. There is also a path out. Take a breath." Hayden looked at me. His voice, when it finally came out, was a small shaking version of a man's voice. "He told me your signature looked weird because you were unwell," he said. "He said you already knew. He said it was for your safety." I did not answer him right away. I took out an SD card and a piece of paper with a phone number on it and slid them across the table. "Call Special Agent Brennan Cole at the FBI field office in San Francisco," I said. "Ask for him by name. Then call me back. You have 24 hours. He called Agent Cole at 11 that night. The next morning he signed a deferred prosecution agreement and became a cooperating witness. Agent Cole called me the following afternoon from a number that didn't show on caller ID. "Mrs. Whitfield," he said, "we now have a witness, forged instruments, and a Delaware shell company. We will have much more within a month. Act normal. Don't scare the mice before the trap is built. And Mrs. Whitfield, there is one more thing. A state investigator's joining us from the California Attorney General's office. Your therapist is not new to this pattern. For the next 3 weeks, I went to therapy every Thursday at 4:00 p.m. Margot's office was on the 3rd floor of the St. Helena Medical Plaza, room 312, and it smelled like eucalyptus and expensive fabric. A reproduction of an Agnes Martin painting hung on the wall behind her chair. Blue lines on a white field. I had once told her I found it calming. I did not record our sessions. California is a 2-party consent state, and Evelyn was adamant. Any recording I made inside that room would poison the evidence. So I sat there with nothing in my pockets but a handkerchief and a carefully prepared script, delivered in small fragments. Sometimes I wake up and I don't recognize the house. Is that normal? That's a sign we should talk about medication, dear. I keep forgetting small things, like the name of the new wine buyer. Mild dissociation. We'll note it. Every word I said was curated by Evelyn and Colton. Foggy. Ambiguous. Never concrete enough to be confronted. Always soft enough to be pathologized. By early November, Margot handed me a prescription for Seroquel, 400 milligrams a day, written on a pad with her clinic's logo at the top. "Just to help you sleep, Caroline," she said. "Low impact. Very common." Evelyn took the prescription to a forensic pharmacologist at UCSF the next morning. He called her 3 hours later. 400 milligrams a day of Seroquel, he said, is not a grief therapy dose. It is a hospital dose. It is used for acute inpatient psychosis. In an outpatient with no psychiatric history, at that dose, the expected clinical presentation within a month would be sedation, motor slowing, and measurable cognitive impairment. "She's not treating you," Evelyn said. "She's building a pharmacological record, a paper trail that says patient on antipsychotic medication. The day the hold petition is filed, they'll point to your own pill bottles as evidence." I bought placebo vitamins of the same size and color at a pharmacy in Sonoma, where no one knew my face. I put them inside a real bottle with a real Walgreens label. At dinner that night, I opened the bottle where Preston could see it. I said, "Margot started me on something. I'm going to try it for a month." Preston smiled at me in a way I had never seen him smile before. Warm on the outside, cold underneath. "That's great, babe. I'm so proud of you for taking this seriously." He meant it. I have never in my life met another human being who was so completely at peace with the machinery of his own betrayal. On November 11th, a federal judge in Oakland signed a Title III wiretap warrant on Preston's phone and on Margot's clinic landline. Operation Codename, Grape Harvest. Agent Cole told me only what I needed to know. Transcripts would reach me with a 72-hour legal delay. I was not to improvise on calls. I was not to ask new questions. I was to be exactly the woman they believed I was becoming. The transcript that broke my breath came from a call on November 6th, 4:28 p.m. 53 seconds. Margot to Preston. We need to move it up. Her father's February distribution is 8.2 million liquid. Once that hits her account and she starts spending, we lose control of the narrative. Preston, listen to me. The evaluation is ready. I need 2 more sessions and I can sign the petition. And Preston's answer, on the other end of the line, translated from the log, she's completely compliant. I promise. I sat in my car in the Medical Plaza parking lot the afternoon I first read that transcript. I read it 3 times. I closed the folder. I called Colton on the burner. They're not trying to rob me, I said. They're trying to bury me. I know, he said. Now drive home. Smile. Eat dinner. Tell your husband you slept better last night. That same night, I went to my father's old office in the east wing of the Hartwell Inn, room 203. I hadn't opened the bottom drawer of his desk in almost a year. Inside, under a stack of paper-clipped hotel ledgers, was a small black velvet bag. Inside the bag, a USB drive and an SD card from a Canon Vixia camcorder my father had loved because it felt like a real camera, not a phone pretending to be one. There was a note inside the bag, in his handwriting. The password is the name of the dog we rescued in '97, followed by the year I hope you never need to see this. Dad. I plugged the USB drive into my laptop. A prompt. I typed biscuit 2026. The folder opened. I texted Evelyn that night. I'm ready for the second letter. Evelyn had me in her office by 9 the next morning. From the wall safe, she brought out a wax-sealed envelope with my father's handwriting on the front. For Caroline, when she knows. And the Canon camcorder itself, the small LCD screen folded out. He made this in June of 2023, Evelyn said. Before your wedding, not after. He hoped he was wrong. I pressed play. The man on the screen was my father 4 months before his final diagnosis. Thinner than I wanted to remember, but not yet hollowed. He sat at the desk in room 203, the one where his note had been hiding. 7 minutes and 22 seconds of him looking straight into the camera. If you are watching this, Caroline, it means I was right about him. I am sorry. I hope I'm wrong. But I built this net because I loved you more than I trusted my own judgment. Your wedding is in 4 months. I will walk you down the aisle. I will smile. I will shake his hand. And I will pray I'm wrong about the man at the other end. He explained what he had seen. Questions Preston had asked at the rehearsal dinner about how the trust really works. A phone call my father had overheard, late one October night in 2023, where Preston was speaking softly to someone he called M. My father had assumed M was a work colleague. Later, after his diagnosis, he stopped being sure. I set up a trust protector, he said. Her name is Judith Holloway. Call her if you need her. Evelyn will introduce you. And Caroline, there is a defense fund. $500,000. It is not for you to save. It is for you to spend. The net only works if you jump. The video ended with him reaching forward to turn off the camera. Just before the screen cut to black, he looked down at his hands and said, more to himself than to the lens, God, I hope she never has to watch this. I sat very still for a long time. Evelyn poured me another cup of that strong black tea and did not speak. That afternoon, Evelyn drove me up the hill to Rutherford, to a white farmhouse with lavender along the front path. Judith Holloway was 67, silver-haired, and moved with the economical calm of someone who had spent 2 decades on a probate bench watching families tear themselves apart. I've been waiting about 6 months for you to walk into my living room, Caroline, she said, taking my coat. I'm glad you're here, and I'm very sorry you are. She poured Earl Grey. She laid 3 folders on the coffee table: trust violations, Sinclair evaluation, federal coordination, photos of her and my father at a Napa County Bar Association retreat hung on the wall. She spoke with the weight of a woman who had already done most of this work for me, invisibly, for months. Before I left, she paused at the door. One more thing, she said. Your father did not want me to tell you until now. Preston is not the first man who has tried something like this with a Whitfield woman. Your grandmother saw a version of it coming in 1987. That is the reason the trust protector position exists in our family at all. It is older than your marriage. It is older than you. I drove home that night with my father's voice in my head and my grandmother's invisible hand on my shoulder, and for the first time since the anniversary dinner, I did not feel alone. If you've stayed with me this far, thank you. This is the part where the story stops being about what happened to me and starts being about what I decided to do next. Leave a comment below with one word, the word for how you would want to respond if someone you loved had done this to you. I read every comment. Valentine's Day was a Saturday. Preston planned what he called an intimate dinner at the house. He invited Margot, who brought a friend named Dr. Whitaker. He invited two of his Sotheby's colleagues, Lauren and Caleb, who were not bad people, but who were that night, witnesses he could point to later. Margot brought a bottle of Caymus Cabernet 2018. Preston accepted it at the door with a warmth that did not quite reach his eyes. The Nest Cam IQ in the living room had been recording in 4K since 5:30 that afternoon. I had checked it twice. I had checked the dining room camera 3 times. Dinner was lamb chops. The conversation was careful. Margot watched me the way a specialist watches a patient on rounds. At one point, I excused myself to the kitchen to get extra napkins. I walked back a few seconds earlier than Preston expected. He was leaning slightly across the table. Over my glass. I saw his hand move, a clear liquid, the smallest pour, disappearing into the dark Pinot I had been sipping. He didn't see me in the doorway. He set the bottle back upright with a casualness that chilled me more than the act itself. Later, Colton would trace the bottle he used. Lorazepam Intensyl, 2 milligrams per milliliter, liquid concentrate, no color, almost no taste. Lot number 8, 264501. Expiry, March 2027. The batch would turn out to be from a hospice supply kit that had been issued to my father in the final weeks of his illness. A bottle that had never been fully returned after his death. A bottle Preston had kept, unopened in a cabinet at our house, for almost 2 years. The drug he planned to use on me had come from my father's own dying. I walked back to the table. I smiled. I sat down. I said something bright about Caleb's golf handicap. I reached across the table for the salt. My hand passed naturally over Preston's wine glass and over mine. When I set the salt down again, the glasses had changed places. Preston, mid-sentence to Lauren, did not notice. Margot, watching too carefully, did not notice either. For 6 months, I had been the one under observation. For the length of one small, clean motion, the cameras were mine. Preston drank the wine I had prepared for him. He drank it slowly, the way a man drinks wine at his own successful evening. 20 minutes later, he began to slur. 40 minutes later, he was unsteady. Margot's face, for the first time since I had known her, registered a flicker of actual confusion. I put my hand on Preston's arm and looked worried in a way that was easy to perform, because I was worried. Not about him. About whether my timing had been right. He slept for 14 hours. At 9:30 the next morning, I called Dr. Patricia Merriman, the family physician who had taken care of the Whitfields since before I was married. Not Margot. Not anyone in Margot's circle. Dr. Merriman came to the house. She examined Preston. She wrote in her note, "Patient appears sedated. Presentation consistent with benzodiazepine ingestion." She asked me if he had been taking anything new. I said, honest in the technical sense, "Not that I know of. He's been under stress." Preston woke at 10:15 with no memory of the end of dinner. I put water next to his bed. I kissed his forehead. "You scared me last night." I walked to the balcony. I called Colton. "He tried it," I said. "I have 4K video and a doctor's note. We have him for attempted administration now." Then it's time, Colton said. We go to auction. On the 23rd of February, we met at Judith's house in Rutherford. Judith, Evelyn, Colton, Delia. Across from them, Agent Brennan Cole from the FBI's San Francisco field office. Next to him, Cheryl Morales, a senior deputy attorney general from California's healthcare fraud unit. The federal charges and the state charges would run parallel. Cole's team would handle the wire fraud, the mail fraud, the aggravated identity theft, the Delaware shell, the conspiracy. Morales would file, in California Superior Court, Napa County, the attempted administration of a controlled substance, the falsification of medical records, and the healthcare fraud elements against Margot. We'll move at the auction, Morales said, but we don't make it a spectacle. I've read the room. Your guests are press, judges, and medical board members. We approach Mr. Blackwood privately, minutes before your speech. We approach Dr. Sinclair in a back hallway. No cuffs in the dining room. We don't need the theater. You'll provide the theater. Delia laid out one more operational detail. We need Preston confident until 7 o'clock on March 7th. That means one more feed. Something that makes him believe he's already won. That week, I left a forged letter on my kitchen counter. It was printed on the archived stationery of the Sedona Wellness Retreat, which Colton had quietly reassembled from a defunct website. The letter suggested I had been inquiring on my own about a short, voluntary stabilization stay. Preston found it at 12:41 p.m. on February 26th. He photographed it with his phone. He sent the image to Margot. The wiretap captured every bite. Look what she left on the counter this morning, Preston wrote. She's already looking at Sedona on her own. February distribution drops in a week. Timing is perfect. Margot's reply was equally patient and equally cold. Don't celebrate yet. We need her signed consent before March 15th. The auction will exhaust her. We approach March 8th. I wrote my speech across 3 nights. 11 minutes. 3 pages. Hand-printed in blue ink. I read it out loud to Judith, who edited in 11 places. Less anger, she said. More clarity. The evidence does the punishing. Your words should do one thing. Put your father back in this room. The night of March 6th, I stood in the main hall of the Hartwell Inn and watched the banquet staff set up 380 chairs. The stage was small, walnut, unlit. Tess Whitmore came up beside me. She didn't speak at first. Then she said, "Your father would be proud of you tomorrow." I said, "My father built this room. I just get to clean it." March 7th, 2026. 7 o'clock p.m. The main hall filled with the quiet, confident sound of old Napa money. Vineyard owners, innkeepers, 2 retired probate judges, a reporter from the Napa Valley Register at Table 5, a reporter from the San Francisco Chronicle at Table 8, an observer from the Los Angeles Times at Table 12. 3 members of the California Medical Board scattered through the room, as polite and unremarkable as any other guests. Cheryl Morales at Table 4. I wore my mother's black silk dress. It fit me the way it had fit her. Not gracefully, not loosely, but completely. Preston arrived at 7 o'clock on the dot. He shook hands with 3 state senators' wives. He told a vineyard owner at Table 2, "Tonight is Caroline's night. She's come so far this year." At 7:02, Tess Whitmore approached Preston. "Mr. Blackwood, there's an urgent call for you in the private office. They said it's your partner from Sotheby's." Preston excused himself. He followed Tess down the hallway and into room 205, the small oak-paneled office behind the banquet hall. Inside was Agent Brennan Cole. 2 other agents. A manila folder on the desk. "Mr. Blackwood," Cole said. "My name is Supervisory Special Agent Brennan Cole, FBI. You are under arrest for wire fraud, mail fraud, aggravated identity theft, conspiracy to commit healthcare fraud, and attempted administration of a controlled substance. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." He read Preston his rights in a voice that was not cruel. He did not cuff him in view of the hall. Preston sat down, very carefully, like a man whose knees had stopped taking orders, and said nothing. At 7:05, a woman named Carmen Navarro from the California Attorney General's office approached Dr. Margot Sinclair outside the women's restroom, where Margot had gone to check her lipstick. Navarro's voice was quiet. "Dr. Sinclair, please come with me." Quietly, Margot said one thing. "I want my attorney." Navarro nodded. "You'll have one. Walk with me." At 7:18, Tess Whitmore took the stage microphone and introduced me with no more ceremony than I had asked for. I walked up to the podium and looked out over 380 faces. 2 chairs, one at table 1, one at table 7, were empty. People were beginning to notice. "Before I continue," I said, and I let the word hang for a moment, "I need to say one thing. Some of you have noticed 2 empty chairs. My husband, my therapist. They won't be joining us tonight. And when I finish speaking, you'll understand why." The room did not gasp. The room went very, very quiet. The kind of quiet that has its own weight. I nodded to the technician at the side of the stage. The first slide filled all 3 screens. 3 quitclaim deeds, side by side. The forged signatures, highlighted in red. 11 points of difference marked in white. Underneath, in small type, Dr. Lindell's forensic report, abbreviated to 1 sentence. All 3 signatures were produced by a single hand. None of them belonged to Caroline E. Whitfield. The second slide. The Delaware filing of Ironwood Capital Partners, LLC, dated May 22, 2025. Registered agent Miles Drexler, Esquire. The third slide. A photograph of my husband holding my therapist in the parking lot of the St. Helena Medical Plaza. August 12, 2025. 5:15 p.m. time-stamped by Delia's surveillance camera. The fourth slide. A redacted FBI wiretap transcript. Caller, Dr. Margot Sinclair. Recipient, Preston Blackwood. Date, November 6th. The audio played through the hall speakers. Margot's voice, low and professional. Her father's February distribution is 8.2 million liquid. Once that hits her account, and she starts spending, we lose control of the narrative. Somewhere in the back of the room, a glass touched a wooden table. It was the only sound for 5 full seconds. "The man I married," I said, "forged my signature to transfer 3 of my father's hotels into a Delaware shell company controlled by him and a man he went to law school with for 1 year. The woman he was with tonight is a licensed psychiatrist who built a false clinical record designed to get me involuntarily committed to a facility in Arizona. Not to help me, to silence me, long enough to access the distribution from my father's trust. My father built these hotels in Napa daylight. I am not willing to let what they did to me happen in the dark." The final slide played. 4K footage from my own dining room camera, February 14th. Preston's hand tipping over my wine glass. The clear liquid falling. His face in full focus for 4 uninterrupted seconds. The video ended. The hall did not applaud. The hall sat in a collective, stunned silence that felt like something ancient and civic and morally alive. I breathed in. "Tonight's auction," I said, "is not just a celebration of 35 years of Whitfield hospitality. Tonight, every dollar raised goes to the launch of a new nonprofit, the Whitfield Guardianship Watch. My father built a net for me before he died. Most women don't have that. Tonight, you are helping me build one for them." I stepped down from the podium. The applause came then. It came slowly, like rain deciding to fall, and then it came in a long, steady wave that did not stop for almost 2 minutes. I didn't bow. I didn't smile. I walked to the south wall, where a black and white photograph of my father stood on an easel. Theodore Whitfield, 2019, standing between the 6 hotels he had built. I put my hand on the frame. "I heard you, Dad," I whispered. Finally, Tess was standing behind me. She held a glass of Whitfield Estate Cabernet in one hand and a small wax-sealed envelope in the other. "Someone asked me to give this to you," she said. "After tonight. He made me promise 2 years ago, about a month before he passed." The envelope had 3 words on the front, in my father's handwriting: "For the night you won it back." On the 15th of March, the federal indictment was unsealed in the United States District Court for the Northern District of California. Courtroom 5. Judge Angela Bernardi presided. Assistant United States Attorney Danielle Kreisberg stood and listed the charges. "Your Honor, the defendant faces 6 federal counts: wire fraud, mail fraud, aggravated identity theft, forgery of an instrument, conspiracy to commit healthcare fraud, and attempted administration of a controlled substance. The government possesses 3 forged deeds, a Delaware shell corporation, intercepted communications, and 4K video surveillance of the defendant drugging his wife on Valentine's Day, 2026. We respectfully request denial of bail." Bail was denied. Preston sat at the defendant's table with a new attorney, a sharp woman named Angela Pritchard. He did not look at me. He had finally understood that looking at me would not help. Outside the courthouse, a Los Angeles Times reporter caught me on the steps. "Mrs. Whitfield, any comment?" I paused for maybe 2 seconds. "Ask my father's hotels," I said. "They're still standing." On the 19th of March, Margot Sinclair accepted a plea deal in California Superior Court, Napa County, before Judge Robert Cranston. 2 counts: conspiracy to commit fraud, falsification of medical records, 5 years in state prison, eligible for parole after 3. Full cooperation, including testimony about Preston. On the stand, under oath, she spoke in the careful cadence of a therapist explaining a case file. "Mr. Blackwood approached me at a charity event in April of 2025, she said. "He knew I was struggling financially. He said his wife was becoming unstable and her inheritance was being mismanaged. He promised me a percentage of the recovered assets. I agreed. I regret agreeing." On the 26th of March, the California Medical Board issued Order 2026-0326 Sinclair. Her license was permanently revoked. Agent Cole called me that afternoon. "There's something I want to tell you," he said. "Margot had a pattern. 3 other women, 2019, 2021, 2023, different states. 2 are deceased. 1, a 71-year-old woman in Oregon named Harriet Aldrich, is still alive. She lost $1,800,000 and spent 11 months in a facility before her nephew got her out. She's heard your name. She would like to meet you." On the 24th of March, Preston signed his own plea deal. 4 of the 6 counts: 11 years at FCY Lompoc, a minimum security facility on the California coast. 3 years of supervised release. A civil disgorgement judgment of $3.8 million, running parallel, enforceable immediately. The 3 stolen hotels, Oak Knoll Lodge, the Meadowbrook, the Stone Creek, reverted to the Whitfield Family Trust under a court rescission order dated March 25th. Ironwood Capital Partners, LLC, was dissolved the same day. Preston walked past me in the hallway outside the courtroom on his way to the federal transport van. Angela Pritchard was on one side of him. A U.S. Marshal was on the other. He tried, at the last second. "Caroline, I did not look at him. I only said, at a volume just above a whisper, 'You were never in this story. You just walked through it.'" He said nothing back. There was nothing to say. He walked out of my life the way he had walked into it, with a borrowed sentence and no real understanding of the woman he had been trying to own. I met Harriet Aldrich at Model Bakery in St. Helena 4 days later. She was small and brisk and wore a linen jacket the color of oatmeal. She ordered a flat white and a single croissant. She looked at me for a long moment before she spoke. "Nobody believed me," she said. "I'm 71. They thought I was just confused. You know who believed you? Your father." That's the difference. That's what we need to build. I asked her that afternoon if she would sit on the board of the Whitfield Guardianship Watch. She said yes before I finished the sentence. On the 30th of March, 2026, the Whitfield Guardianship Watch officially opened. The office took the entire right wing of the ground floor of the Hartwell Inn, 180 square meters of cream walls and warm oak. Delia became lead investigator. Colton took on financial oversight. Judith agreed to chair the board. Harriet joined. Our opening fund was $3.2 million. 1.2 from the auction, $2 million from the civil disgorgement Preston owed me. On the first day, our hotline received 38 calls, 11 from within California, 4 from Arizona, the state Margot had wanted to send me to. The very first email in our inbox came from a woman in San Diego. Her subject line was 4 words: "Please, please help me." Her first sentence was, "My husband is a cardiologist. My therapist is his college friend." I printed that email. I put it in a small walnut frame. I hung it on the wall behind the front desk, where every new employee would see it on their first day. I wrote a letter to Preston's mother, Anne Blackwood, 74, a quiet woman who had raised him in Vermont and who had not known any of what her son had done. I wrote it in blue ink by hand, across 3 pages. I did not try to forgive her son. I did not try to explain him. I only tried in plain language to spare her the indignity of learning the worst parts from a newspaper. "You raised him," I wrote. "You did not raise what he became. I am sorry you had to hear any of this at all. If you ever want to meet, I will listen. That is all I can offer." She wrote back 4 days later. A short note. She thanked me for the dignity of hearing it in my handwriting first. She did not ask to meet. I did not push. Some doors are only opened once they're ready. Some doors stay closed, and that is also a form of peace. Some things healing looks like forgiveness. Some things healing looks like silence. Either is allowed. On the last Sunday of March, I drove to the Hartwell Inn alone. I walked up to the veranda at sunset. I asked the hostess, a new girl who did not yet know who I was, for table 11 by the window. She seated me there without ceremony. I ordered a glass of Whitfield Estate Cabernet, 2019. It arrived in one of my father's original wine glasses, the heavy ones with the slightly thick rims he had insisted on buying in '98, because, he said, a wine this honest deserves a glass that doesn't flatter it. I took out my phone. I opened the message thread with Preston, the one that still ended with his last text from October 18th. "Happy anniversary, babe. I'm stuck at work." I deleted the thread. The screen went blank for half a second before it returned to the home screen. That small dark second was the only funeral I would ever give him. I looked out the window. The vineyards beyond the veranda were going amber at the edges. The light was the color my father used to describe as Cabernet weather. Bill Evans was playing softly through the hotel speakers. Somewhere in the kitchen, someone laughed about a dropped tray. Tess Whitmore walked past my table. She did not say anything. She just placed her hand on my shoulder for 2 seconds and kept walking. I raised my glass. "To the man who saw this coming," I said quietly, to no one in particular. "And to the woman he made sure would finish it." I sat there for a long time after that. I watched the sun slide behind the Mayacamas. I thought about my mother's ring, which was back in my jewelry box where it belonged, on a velvet cushion that had held it for 38 years. I thought about my father's hospice room, where a small bottle of medicine had once sat on a tray, and about the fact that the same bottle had been used, almost 2 years later, by a man who had kissed my therapist 2 tables away from me and thought I was too fragile to see it. I thought about all of it, and I realized, sitting there in my own hotel, in my own chair, in my own body, that the real show had never been the betrayal. The real show was the person I became after it. If this story meant something to you, if you saw a piece of yourself in it, or a piece of someone you love, Tell me in the comments. Where are you watching from? Your city? Your country? And if there is a woman in your life who needs to hear that a quiet voice can bring down a loud house, send this to her. Tell her she doesn't have to shout. Tell her she only has to stay calm until the real show starts. That's what a father who loves his daughter taught me. That's what I'm going to keep teaching, one woman at a time, for the rest of my life.